Nalo from the Nerds of Color. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. It's so lovely to see you. And
And
honestly,
you.
it's a fantastic movie. It's such good fun. And honestly, my favorite part, easily of the movie, my favorite character was Polly. And
Oh,
no, she's hands down the strongest character, and I think this center of the movie that's so central to Oxford's character and building him up and making him stronger. You are the muscle of this group, which I love. So
yeah, yeah.
fantastic performance. Um,
Oh, thank you.
as this movie does take its roots in a lot of historical figures, real life historical figures, I wanted to know if any badass females from history really inspired your performance as Polly.
Well, I didn't draw from any one in particular, but there were, obviously in the UK we had the suffragettes, who were this underground network of women getting together trying to win the vote, and they were created their own agency, and they were incredibly important and risking their lives and doing incredible things, rallying people and getting people on side. And that was around this time that was happening. And then I also was inspired by the Bletchley women. They were a group of women, it was more during the Second World War, in fact, but they were a group of mathematicians that, under the radar, like helped to crack code, and were really instrumental in like ending World War II. So yeah, but she's fictitious, and Matthew Vaughan, I think, had a nanny when he was growing up that he loved, that was really like no nonsense and had cut through all the bullshit. And I think that she's inspired by her very much. So I think.
Fantastic. You and Rafe are both veterans of the 007 franchise as well. And this is very much cut from the same cloth. This franchise is cut from the same cloth. I wanted to ask, can you describe really the differences for you going from 007 to now the Kingsman franchise?
Well, I guess for me, it's like very much like now I'm a spy, and and so I think I have a little bit more agency and more scope, character scope. I don't die like immediately, so that's good. Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting actually. I hadn't really thought about it until now that Rafe and I have both been in those franchises, but yeah.
And one last question. This is very random, but I am a huge fan of Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. And for
Oh,
years,
really? Okay.
yes, it is such a good movie. For years, they've been talking about a sequel or a potential series. Any potential updates on that?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything. I feel like I'm definitely now too old to play that in that film. I'd have to play one of the witches, I think now. But yeah, I don't know.
Wonderful. Well, I'd love to see you break out the crossbow again because you're fantastic. Not too old. You're amazing. And you are amazing in this movie as well. So thank you, Gemma, for being such a
Oh,
badass.
thank you. Thanks so much.
Have a great one. Bye.
Take care. You.
I'm a big fan of Matthew Vaughn. I would imagine both of you are as well. For fans of his, what do you think might actually surprise them to learn about Matthew and the way he works on set?
Well, the one thing I sort of noted and took away from it was that despite having these huge sequences and huge sets and the pure mass of people involved in some of these scenes, he's very calm and he's amazing at orchestrating them, but he also is very open to change and collaboration to a certain degree. You know, I think that's something that I didn't necessarily expect on a film like this.
Yeah, I agree. I was so surprised by that, how he is so collaborative. And I guess because you think someone that has such a strong identity in cinema would be sort of like, this is how it goes, but he's not. And I think he was also, he really loved working with us, the actors, and was very sort of, he would sort of give it over to us actually sometimes, especially in the kind of more serious scenes. He'd just sort of say, you do it, you go for it, and trusted in us. And I thought that was really surprising as well. I thought he was so good to work with and had such great insights and yeah, and obviously he's this incredible visionary director who completely sees it. You know, you're making the film and he's like, well, now I'm going to cut to this, and he's got it in his mind totally, which was great because I had no idea what was going on half the time. So I was like, okay, you know, it's fine.
The other thing about Matthew is that he creates, with obviously his crew, these really cool action set pieces in all of these Kingsman movies. What was it like actually to be a part of those things? Because I can't imagine these are easy to film.
You know, what's evident is that Matthew, and this isn't taking away from what Matthew does, but he surrounds himself with incredible people. You know, Brad Allen and the whole stunt team are so dedicated to getting every element right, and you despite being in films and you know, having done fight sequences and a few little stunts here and there and other stuff, you still sort of not overlook, but you forget how much goes into it. And I think this was like, you know, I started physically like 6 months before shooting, and you can see why, because it is so well planned, and the camera department are tied into it as well from very early on, and you just feel very safe and very like comfortable in their hands. And for me, I was just like, I felt honored to like be a student of these experts and be open. You know, Gemma and I had the same trainer, Tony Bayliss, who was like ex-military, ex-paratrooper, special forces, like one of the best kind of person we could have had to like give us that military weapon work background. I think, like, you know, there's not many other jobs where you get to go to work every day and get to crawl around in fields. You know, there were some days where I was just like, you know, crawling around random fields in the English countryside with Tony, and you sort of go home and you're like, yeah, this is cool, you know.
Well, maybe switching to something else, I really dig how this film incorporates real history into the telling of this story. Can both of you talk a little bit about your reaction to reading the script for the first time and seeing the way he was twisting it all together?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I read the script, I was like, whoa, this is full, you know, like there's a lot going on. And World War One, like the build up to World War One in itself is a really weird and loads of different things going on, lots of different elements as to why it got to the point of war, and that and then the family stuff with the Oxfords, and then the kind of formation of the Kingsmen. It was just like, wow. I mean, I thought, how is he going to do this? I was in, you know, it felt very, very dense. But when I saw the film, I thought he'd done an amazing job at getting all of that in there, but making it understandable and palatable, and also making you still care for the characters, because sometimes with films with so much event in them, you don't care for the characters because there's not enough time to kind of invest in them. And I think you really, really do in this. So I really, you know, doff my hat to Matthew Vaughn, because it's not an easy job, and he did a brilliant job in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, agreeing with Gemma totally, that the amount of stuff I didn't realize actually happened, you know, despite Matthew sort of changing and taking us more like maybe sort of mad take on certain elements of history. A lot of in the film I was surprised to learn was actually stuff that happened. So I think for me that was the biggest thing coming out of it. Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure everyone who sees this movie is going to be blown away by Reese as Rasputin. I mean, he is giving it, I hate like 100% in every scene. And I'm just curious for both of you, what was it like watching the finished film and seeing what Reese had done? Because it's so good.
It's so good. I mean, so good. I have been a fan of Reese fans for a long time, and he's so, like, in my opinion, a bit of an underrated actor. And to see him like transform and do this really disturbing yet very, very funny performance. I mean, he really is like incredible what he does. So yeah, I can't wait for people to see that, because it's so memorable and it's so unique.
Yeah. I mean, also Reese is like the most he's like the most charming, funny, like normal guy ever. So like when he stepped onto set as Rasputin, it really was, like Gemma said, a massive like transformation physically, like vocally. He used to do this crazy like vocal fray in the morning and like change the pitch of his voice and the tone. And I also had a lot of scenes where I was like certain comedic moments that I couldn't really hold it down for, that it was quite tough, you know, like sitting opposite him. And also sometimes when you're doing scenes with someone and like you just catch these incredible moments, you really just want to like, you just want to smile because of how good it is, and you just sort of marvel at what's happening. But yeah, I think everyone's mentioning that fight scene, everyone's really enjoying what Reese has done, and rightfully so, because he's incredible.
Harris, this is for you. The no man's land sequence that you were running through was like real explosions going on. So is it safe to say that your reaction in the film is like real life, like, oh, this is deadly?
Yeah. I wish I could sit here and say I acted my socks off, but I really was more just thinking about like hitting the mark and not breaking my legs and not getting hit in the face. There was one scene where they said the pyrotechnics guys came over and was like, you know, if you run too close to this, you'll get hit with shrapnel. And I was like, is that safe? Like, am I allowed to do that? Or so yeah, I really was just thinking about not dying. So yeah, whatever you see is that, really just pure fear.
Well, I think a lot of people think that making movies is just very glamorous all the time, and I think both of you can attest that it is a very physical and taxing gig, making a movie of this size and scale.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody got injured at some point, apart from me. And yeah, there were a lot of kind of sore knees and backs and arms and everyone. And most of the time you're cold, you're so freezing. There's, you know, it's one thing. I mean, obviously not complaining, because we are so lucky to do the job that we do. It's the best job in the world and very lucky to do it. But you are often very cold, and you've got to look like you're kind of warm, and you're freezing. That was probably my experience, just being very cold.
Yeah, I've heard that from a number of actors on many things. I gotta go. I'm just gonna say congrats on the movie. You guys again did such a great job. Good luck with the rest of your speed dating.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
All right, so the first question today is going to be to Gemma. It's, your character Polly has an interesting dynamic. Can you tell us a little bit about her and why you wanted to play her?
As soon as I read the script, I absolutely just loved Polly. I thought she was just so cool and not what I expected. She brings a real dose of, you know, warmth and humor and care. She cares for everybody. She's really the kind of the matriarch of the family, and all these lads, all these tough lads, you know, they do need a shoulder to cry on every now and then. So she is that, but she also is, you know, she's tough and she's strong, and she's the sort of brains behind the operation, really. As we learn about the Kingsman agency, we really see that she sort of, you know, manages it and is very integral to the running of it. So she's just a great character, and I love playing her.
Next, for Harris, your character Conrad exemplifies the idealism of the era. What makes Conrad tick, and what did you like best about playing him?
Wow, great question. I think that you know, I think at that time in history, everyone was certainly my character's age were going off and joining the British military and kind of being defined by their bravery, and I think being held back by his father's ideals and pacifism is something that deeply frustrates him, you know, and I think that's one of the first things I, as an actor, latched onto, you know, and tried to sort of find the role through is that frustration and that desire to want to discover the world for yourself. And yeah, it was an interesting sort of dynamic between Rafe and I, so I enjoyed that.
So this one is for both of you, and Gemma, we'll start with you. What was the most fun about playing in a period film that also had the action and spectacle of the Kingsman films?
I mean, the fact that this is a period film sets it apart from the original Kingsman films. It brings a real sense of, you know, there's a weightiness to it, it's at times a seriousness because of the events themselves being incredibly serious. But it was really fun to juxtapose that with the Kingsman style, with the fun and the humour and the kind of at times zaniness of the Kingsman world. And yeah, I loved that. It was a really nice thing to play, actually, because even when you're playing someone from a different period, you do have to keep in mind that people were different and they had a different way of behaving and relating to things. So having that sense of kind of that very modern sense of Matthew Vaughan's films within that was kind of quite a challenge, but somehow we all pulled it off, I think, because of Matthew Vaughn being so such a great director. So yeah, that's what I loved.
What was the most fun about playing in a period film that also had the action and spectacle of the Kingsman films?
Yes, sorry. Well, it's not every, well, you know, I think I was very lucky in the sense that I got to have these very dramatic scenes with Rafe and Gemma and Jaimin, but also get to go off and do the action as well. And I think there's not many projects where you have that. So just I was kind of spoiled in that regard. Yeah.
Now, next one for Gemma. What kind of training did you have to pull off the shooting sequences?
So I did have a little bit of training with an amazing guy that trained Paris and I called Tony, he was ex-military, like serious, like paramilitary actually, and he sort of was brought on to make us look legit. So with the weapons and the way that we handled them, I remember him saying, you know, I can always tell in a film when people are running around with a gun like this and their finger on the trigger, you know, I can tell when it's not legit. So I'm very grateful to him for training me. But also, you know, they had an amazing stunt team on the Kingsman films, and they really are the top guys. And they trained everyone extensively, and there was very, you know, very defined and well thought out choreography to do. So yeah, we all worked. We all had our own individual things that we were learning. Mine was marksmanship and working with pistols and rifles. But yeah, it's good fun. Loved it.
All right, Harris, back to you. Can you tell us about filming the battle scenes in the trenches, and how realistic was it, and how did you feel about it?
Well, I guess I'll start. You know, it was very realistic. Matthew and the whole construction team, the art department, the set deck, they really like went to town on all of those scenes. They transformed like an airfield in the English countryside into trenches, and you know, it was all there. It had all been built. So I really didn't have to. I didn't have to wander far in terms of imagination. So yeah, I think with those sort of scenes, you just try and, there's so many elements, and they have multiple cameras, and there's like explosions and timings, and it is quite scary. It becomes more than just, you notice how switched on your mind is in those moments, because you have so many things to remember, and if you mess up, or you go at the wrong time, or you don't hit your mark, you know, there's 20 other elements that are going to be affected by it. So I think it just really forces you to be like be focused in those moments, you know.
And let's see, next one. This is going to also be to both of you. It's tell us about working with director Matthew Vaughn and his style. Gemma?
Yeah, oh, well, it was such an amazing experience working with Matthew Vaughn. I've been such a huge fan of his for many years, so I was anxious to know what it would be like to work with him. I was a bit nervous, but I didn't need to be, because he's a great person to work with. He's very collaborative. He was always very, he really wanted to know my take on Polly. I think, you know, he was very up for me contributing further, yeah, and yet at the same time has absolutely in his mind the whole film. I think he's a very visual director that has that ability to see cuts and how he's going to edit the thing and what it will look like, and so, you know, for me personally, I was so grateful for that, because you really felt like you could trust in him and his vision. So it was just a joy, really, from start to finish. Oh, yeah.
Harris, what about you?
Oh,
And this will be the last question.
Yeah, no, I mean, just going off of what Gemma just said as well, I think Matthew, he's incredibly impressive. You know, he takes risks within this genre, and I felt like he put a lot of trust in me to portray the role, and he was really sort of kind and caring with it. And I think at the size of a film like this and the amount going on, he was also such an important presence of, you know, keeping everyone calm and just like having assurance in your director is so important. So yeah, it was great.